standing nose to nose with the unknown. At this moment, you're standing nose to nose, or sitting nose to nose, with the unknown. This is the end. There's nothing more that needs to be discerned. And yet, it can take a while for this to really land. Because even though you are nose to nose with the unknown, there may be a significant amount of mental activity that obscures this. Now, the point of this conversation really is to clarify what exactly this unknown means to the mind, the implications, and then why the mind, we're just going to say it's the mind or the ego, personify it a bit, but why does the mind abhor this unknown? Or why does the mind seem to even rebel against it or avoid it? So when I talk about the unknown, anything I say beyond that will potentially be misleading. So anything I say now, when I'm trying to describe the unknown, is going to be potentially misleading. First of all, it has no description. It has no adequate description, because a description would have to be, let's just say, like one point in time, for instance. Now, aside from the fact that there are no points in time, because time is an illusion, also it's a snapshot, or trying to take a snapshot of reality as it is, let's say in this moment. But reality doesn't stay one way. Reality isn't one way. It doesn't conform to what we believe it is or what we think it needs to be for us, or maps. It doesn't conform to maps. It doesn't conform to philosophical opinions. It doesn't conform to metaphysical claims. It doesn't conform to your idea about enlightenment or awakening. It doesn't conform to anything I've ever said about enlightenment or awakening. So the unknown is just not of that world, the world of descriptions and maps and so forth. This isn't to say that descriptions and maps can't be helpful. They can be helpful in the right context, but they can also be detrimental when they become obscurations themselves, right? So the unknown, again, you're nose to nose with it. You're staring directly into it. It's coming in fully through all five senses, six senses if you consider cognition a sense. It's unfiltered. It can't actually be filtered. It can't be obscured even, strangely enough. It can't be hidden. It can't be lost. It can't be gained. It's just here. It's just this. So yeah, I hesitate to say more about it because, again, any description can be misleading. Rather, I would just say that if you resonate with what I'm saying, that you are nose to nose with it right now, you're nose to nose with the great mystery. Trust that. If it resonates, trust it. Don't worry about what I'm saying. Trust what resonates inside of you, right? If something resonates, it's not like, oh, I agree with it logically. It's like, I can feel it. Like there's something in me, some instinct that feels the truth of that statement. If that's where you are, that's great. Attune to that resonance, and let it just take you. Let it clarify everything, because it will. If it's obscure, if what I'm saying does sound philosophical or metaphysical or something, and leads you to just thoughts after thoughts after thoughts, that's okay too. That happens for a while. Usually you have to come into contact with a potent message about the possibility of awakening several times before it really clicks. And often it really clicks when there's some external life circumstance that makes the environment, let's say, more auspicious for awakening. So it could be some kind of tragedy or breakup or rug pull in your life, however that happens. And that corresponds with, hearing the same pointing, but all of a sudden that pointing penetrates. And I've heard this so many times at so many levels, right? Many people have described Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. Reading that the first time, that just caused some opening. You knew there was something more here for sure. People have said that about my book. I've had people comment that happens with these videos, and on and on. So the pointings are here. You know where they are. You know how to look for these, right? Or you know where to look. And sometimes you'll feel there's resonance, and yet it's not sinking deep. The universe didn't turn inside out. The sense of boundlessness didn't suddenly clarify. Or I should say the sense of boundaries didn't suddenly drop away. That's okay. Yeah, like I said, may have to hear it a few more times in the right context, and then something just clicks, and the auspices of your life support it, right? And something starts shifting or shifts very quickly. So that's the deal. So if I'm not going to talk more about the unknown, what am I going to talk about? Well, I can talk about the seeming barrier, the seeming obscuration. And this is also helpful. It's another way of pointing, because I'm pointing to what is so hypnotic about thought. When I point to what is so hypnotic about thought, first we become aware of thoughts. Then we become aware of something that is independent of thoughts, but doesn't exclude thoughts. Consciousness, right? You could even say that there's a non-self-conscious version of that experience, of pure experience, that we could call awareness. Some people differentiate the two, some people don't. But that's a deeper understanding. And then at some point, the struggle with thoughts subsides, because you've seen through thoughts enough times that you realize not only are thoughts suspect, and not only, you could even be convinced that thoughts really don't have a truth value ultimately, except maybe in the relative in relation to other thoughts or other beliefs or whatever. You may see through that, but you haven't seen through the illusion that you are the thinker. You haven't seen through the tendency to believe the thoughts such that you have to react to the thoughts again and again and again. When you see through that, now you'll see the mystery. You will see the unknown. You'll know the unknown. And this is very paradoxical, because it will be the first time in your life where you feel like you finally know something. Finally really know something. What do I mean by really know something here? I don't mean that you're intellectually convinced of it because it's been proven to you again and again through logic or experimentation. There's value to that for sure, right? Science, medicine, all that. There's value to that. We all benefit from it. But this is a kind of certainty that goes beyond that kind of certainty. It just is. This can sound like a philosophical claim as well, but all I can tell you is I've been on both sides of it. And when someone argues and they're only on one side of it, I just say, well, you haven't experienced the other side. When you do, you're going to know what I mean. And trust that you can. So what often happens, sometimes happens, I see it in comments and people who are skeptical or maybe materialist or views or whatever, substantialist views, all the things. What often happens is there's almost like an arrogance to it. Like they almost dismiss this what I'm talking about as if it's just nonsense. But I don't think they actually believe it's nonsense. I think underneath there's something that knows. Well, I know underneath there's something that knows. It's just not ready, or it's fearful, right? So what does fear do? Fear drives us into our thoughts, right? Even though it's uncomfortable to live in that world much of the time, it's familiar. The unknown is not familiar, or at least not familiar in the way the mind wants familiarity, right? I've made videos about this where I talk about the different kinds of familiarity. So the thoughts coming and going, almost like a solid stream of thoughts until it becomes so many snapshots that it's like an ongoing movie in your own mind, imagining things that already happened, thinking about things that haven't happened yet, right? All of that sort of thing. And rather hypnotic, filtering out this mystery, filtering out this, the unknown. And seeing that kind of comfort comes with a cost. That kind of familiarity comes with a cost. It's a big cost. That's when you start to feel suffering, what we call suffering as a translation of dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. That's when you start to feel that. And again, it's very uncomfortable, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because that suffering is really just to personify the universe. It's the universe's way of handing you a note that says, yeah, it's not, what you're experiencing isn't the full scope of experience. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny shadow of experience. That's what suffering is. It's that note to you from the universe. And it doesn't feel good, of course, but it's good because it's authentic. You're seeing now, the suffering itself is you're seeing and feeling the discomfort of trying to stay in the known, but the intellectual known, right? The belief-based known, the institution-based known, religious institutions, government institutions, corporate institutions, human institutions, where we believe we know what it is to be a human and a father and a son and a daughter and a mother and a brother and a sister and a lover. All those are institutions, actually, in the way I'm speaking. So we see that, it's actually really uncomfortable to try to maintain the illusion of identity in relation to institution. That's really uncomfortable. And that's what suffering is to realize it's uncomfortable. It's inherently uncomfortable. Now, if you're suffering already, before you hear a message like this, maybe you grew up suffering like I did, what you don't often realize, and it's really kind of tragic, is that you may think you're the only one suffering like this. You may think other people do, but this is just really bad. And you also may think there's no way out of it. And that's really unfortunate, because that's the universe gave you a note, but you don't know how to read the universe's handwriting, right? You're like, it's not spelled in normal language or something. So you kind of internalize it, right? You think something's wrong with you. You feel like an alien. You feel like you don't get people. You don't understand how people do what they do and why they seem to know what to do, and they seem happy and carefree and you don't, right? That's suffering. So that's just a misinterpretation, I could say, of suffering. The feeling will still be there. The resistance patterns, the maybe reactivity, the sense of separation, duality may still be there, but you can have a transformation in how you understand suffering, big time. And that's by coming into contact with a message like this that says, yeah, that safe place of the known is not the only place. It's not the only possibility. There are vast possibilities beyond that. There is a vastness of intimacy that's available actually right where you are. And yet constant hypnosis with thought seems to obscure it. Again, it's not actually obscured, but by living in the world of thought, you're creating a sense of the self based on thought, and that self feels separate from everything, actually. So it feels separate from even the body. Yeah. So even though reality is never obscured, there can be this seeming split between the subject and object, between the thinker and the thought, that occurs up here, right? In some neurons, probably. It's a sense of being the struggling one. And to see, okay, yes, I do suffer, and this is uncomfortable. And yes, something in me says that there is a way out of it. Like, I trust this. There's a resonance, as I mentioned at the beginning. Now, a lot of the work is done in a way, because a lot of the work is just the work of life as usual, the quiet life of quiet desperation and suffering and not thinking there's a way out. There's a lot of sort of work in that. It's not necessarily work towards some direction. It's just a lot of energy burned up in here and in the body, and takes its toll on you and takes its toll on those around you. And collectively it takes its toll. So that's, in one sense, work, right? So to recognize that you do suffer, and to recognize that there is resonance with this message, and then further to recognize that stepping into the unknown really is what this is going to entail for you, you're in a good place. Like, a lot of those preliminary steps are completed. Now you just need a step. You can do that in different ways. You can step right now. If you're primed for this, there's going to be thousands of views on this video. Who knows? Somewhere between 5 and 10,000 people will watch this video. There's definitely going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who are going to hear this and hear me saying, step now. Step. Let go. Let go into the unknown. Leave the known behind. It's never done you any good, has it? Not in this sense, not in the sense of feeling okay with yourself. Let it go. It's just a thought. Notice the thoughts. One thought, gone. Next thought, gone. The sense of being the thinker, just another thought, gone. Gone, 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 right? That's the unknown. You're literally facing the unknown. You're just leaning into it. And at some point, it'll drop. It'll drop. Trust that. This is how it happens. And I don't know how many people I've met who've had this initial awakening now. Hundreds of people. Probably more. I don't know. It's a lot. And it's available to you for sure. You just have to be willing to let go of the known and trust that your life isn't going to completely fall apart in the relative. You'll still know how to drive a car, those sorts of things. You'll know how to tell time. I mean, you're not going to lose faculties, but you are going to let go of the identification with those faculties. And that's challenging and scary, but come into contact with us enough times, keep listening to the message, keep feeling in, keep noticing what the mind is doing, and it will happen at some point. The drop will occur, and then you'll know the unknown. And then when you know the unknown, then you know a kind of knowing that is beyond the thoughts. It's beyond the relative. It's a pure knowingness. It's beautiful. So then you enter the world of paradox that I love talking about so much. Yeah, let me know if that lands.